Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I'm very happy today to have Ajay Patel, who is the General Manager of Apptio and Automation Business for IBM since 2023. So let me just bring you forward. Well, whoops, a little too far forward. Let's do that. Nice to meet you, and thanks for making time for us today.
Oh, thank you, Karen. Good morning.
Good morning. That's right. You are in the Seattle area, correct?
On the West Coast, correct.
Okay, yeah. So Apptio, just for those who aren't at all familiar, founded in the Seattle area in 2007, is now an IBM company acquired last summer, actually almost a year ago, for $4.6 billion. For those that aren't very familiar with the company, maybe Ajay, you could tell us sort of what is Apptio?
Absolutely. Again, great opportunity to talk about Apptio. We're excited. I'm hitting a 1-year mark with IBM. And as you said, Apptio was basically founded on the principle that, technology spend is increasing. And CIOs and CXOs and finance people really don't have visibility into the technology spend. And working with the community, we created something called the Technology Business Management Council. And there's really important for CXOs and the discipline of how do you manage technology and make the most value of technology to deliver business outcomes. So Apptio was foundationally built to say, what are the tools and technologies we can provide to help the CXO audience get the most value from the technology spend, whether it's IT spend, whether it's cloud spend, whether it's people spend. So I always say Apptio is a SaaS company that specializes in delivering value for technology business management, right? We help you get the most value out of your technology and human capital spend, and give you the tools you need to make sure that you're getting you're most aligned to the business outcomes that you're looking to deliver.
Yeah. So really helping leaders make decisions.
Absolutely.
We're
a decisioning platform, but an action platform. So not just about reports, but what do you do with this data and what action insights can we give you? And if you think about it, kind of fall in 3 big buckets. People always start with, what is my visibility? Where's my money going, right? Then it's all the financial management tools. We traditionally call it financial budgeting, forecasting, planning, those kinds of tools, right? How do I then link to where my money is going to actually what the work is being done? What I want people working on? How do I manage my resources, my people, right? And the last piece is, okay, I'm using more and more of the cloud. How do I get visibility of the cloud? But how do I optimize that spend? And then what's the narrative back to the business? Because IT gets all the costs, but the value is delivered to business. So how do I link my technology costs to who's getting the value, who's using this technology and getting the benefit of it? So you need kind of a platform that brings it all together. That's what Apptio has all been all about.
Well, that's a big remit because there is a lot of spend in that area and more all the time. So what's the relationship between Apptio and IBM in terms of I know they were acquired, but in terms of the partnership?
There's a little bit of a funny story. When I was meeting the CFO of IBM, he would say, I'm the reason why IBM bought Apptio, because the CIO and IT function sits under the CFO at IBM. And IBM was actually a customer of Apptio. So in many ways, the internal user, the finance team and the IT team said, we need a technology like Apptio. That led to the conversation about why shouldn't this be part of the IBM portfolio? And so the relationship started as a customer first. IBM is an internal user of Apptio. But what it's evolved to really is now we are at the front end of how technology spend happens. Now, one of the things we have to be very sensitive is the customer data we manage, the cost data we manage. It's really the customer's data. So we don't use that for sharing that with the rest of IBM. So it's IBM protected data. But the relationship with IBM really is one about how do we get the global reach of IBM? And the relationship and the large spend that customers have with IBM and other technology providers to translate it to business value. And part of what makes Apptio special is we really focused on customer outcomes. We're 100% SaaS, and we're unique in the fact that we come in and start with understanding the customer's landscape and their priorities, and then figure out how we map our technology to it. So the relationship with IBM is one where we're giving IBM access to more strategic stakeholders, CFOs, CIOs, CXOs, business. We even have COOs on our board, in the Technology Business Management Board, because this is really about technology is no longer about IT. As my old boss used to say, tech is breaking out of tech. So technology is everywhere. how do we now make sure that we're able to use a data-driven approach to understand how we're getting the most out of this technology? And how do we translate that to value? So the relationship with IBM is a strategic one. We bring that strategic element to IBM as we have these conversations with customers. That often then leads to using our tools and technology in terms of how to drive those outcomes, which could be the rest of the IBM portfolio.
Yeah. Well, that's a dream exit for a company, right? To have a customer love you so much that they purchase you and then add their resources. And it seems to be working. I read that in IBM's second quarter earnings this year, that in less than 12 months since the acquisition, bookings were up, ARR growth is up in the mid-teens. Could you say more about how that growth continues within IBM?
No, absolutely. So one of the things you're seeing is, you go to any CXO or any enterprise today, and you say, is your technology cost going up or down? Now, IT budgets are growing in the 6 to 9% range. Mm-hmm. Cloud cost, AI cost, general labor costs are growing much faster than that. And so most of our customers are struggling between what we call run the business and change the business. And so this becomes almost a natural conversation to say, how can we, IBM, help you, Mr. Customer, shift from the run the business to change the business? And it starts with an Apptio conversation. Mm. The good news is every one of our, we call them managing directors and our technology leaders, are seeing Apptio as a good conversation starter with their customers. It relates to today's problem. It speaks to what our customers are dealing with. Second part is, if you look at the latest report from Forrester, cloud cost management is becoming a category that's growing significantly. Yes. And we were now recognized as the leader by far. If you see their typical wave quadrant, I don't think I can get further right and top. So we were pretty excited to see the results. So it's a combination of great product, real urgent market need, and the IBM ability to reach these customers and offer them a solution. All of them is coming together that's delivering incredible growth for us. And so we took an aggressive growth number, and we're actually meeting and exceeding our growth target. So I'm pretty excited with the lift IBM has given us and just the customer adoption that we're seeing out there with technology.
It's amazing. The tagline for my business is up and to the right for my consulting business. And so
I know you can go for the right, so I'm pretty delighted. We're right as far as you can go on the right side of the wave.
I'm glad to meet someone that has pegged that quadrant. So well done. Yeah, so how do you lead through this kind of growth? I mean, it's one thing when you're a standalone company. Now you're within this larger giant
firm. We've been blessed by having IBM leadership really recognize the unique element of Apptio. As I was saying, we don't typically sell to the infrastructure buyer. We're usually selling to the CXO audience, and our conversations are different. We have a community, a council. So what IBM's done smartly is left us intact. Mm-hmm. So we operate as an intact operating unit. And so my partner in crime, Larry Blasco, and I get to run the business as if we were a standalone company. We're not standalone by any means. We're an intact business unit, part of IBM Software Group. But the way we show up to our customers, how we provide customer success, how do we continue to drive the value conversation, how do we deliver services, that's all in the remit of myself and Larry. So from an operating model perspective, we're maintaining the Apptio operating model, as we call it, the SaaS operating model. Mm-hmm. And having come from a PE-backed company, we're very efficient. And so we're giving IBM both an efficient operating structure, but a very customer-focused and a value-oriented culture. And at the heart, we're a SaaS company. So we're also bringing a lot of the SaaS practices back to IBM. So internally, we're almost the blueprint for where IBM needs to continue to evolve to drive SaaS adoption across our portfolio. So we have an amazing opportunity to both be a transformation agent for our customers, but more internally for IBM and how we continue to drive change. So it's been a great partnership, great support, intact operating model. As I tell my customers, you're stuck with me, good or bad. I'm still the front end in terms of everything related to the business. So we have an opportunity to really continue to grow. And then you get the reach. We've gone global with IBM. As Apptio, we did not have the reach. Like I would probably say we were at very light coverage in Central Europe. And this year, just by adding the coverage there, we've had an amazing pickup in our European business because we just didn't have the reach. So IBM is giving us that scale platform, if you think of it that way. They're giving us the reach, the tools, the resources. On the other end, I feel like a kid in a candy store. The amount of technology we have here at IBM is just incredible. I don't have to go any further to look for AI with Watson, right? If I want some data integration technology, I have that at my fingertips. So we're also able to leverage the IP. IBM Research is bringing some amazing research for us in terms of sustainability, for example. So this has been a symbiotic partnership. Apptio is bringing a lot to IBM, but IBM in return is giving us the scale, the technology, the innovation platform. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to say, I don't want to jinx it, but it's been a really amazing 1 year, and I think we have so much more potential in front of us.
That's great. Well, there's so many threads there I want to pull, but let's start with AI. Sort of what is next for Apptio in terms of your product development, and then also if you could touch on sort of the trends that you see in your industry in general.
Absolutely. So I think that two trends that I see, and I'll start by one is, we're hitting that peak of hype for AI.
Mm-hmm.
But customers absolutely see that as an essential part of where we going forward. But the cost and the value equation are something they're struggling with. And so we're getting to that stage where customers are starting to say, am I really getting the productivity benefits that I hope out of my AI technology? We're also getting past this notion of AI assistants. Like everyone's got one of these chatbot interactive assistants. Great, got that check mark.
At
But
least
how
one.
am I using that to change the way I do work? And so one of my customers used this word. I need you to give me AI to build expertise in my people. So this notion of assistance is not just an interactive chatbot, but how do I give you what I call guided expertise so that your typical employee who may not have the depth of breadth in the area, we make them a superhero, right? In some sense, we give them the tools so they're more productive, they're more insight, they're making better decisions. And that's what we're aiming to deliver. And so we're starting with what I even call my prone product team. We're getting some basics going. And what I start by basics is, how do we help a customer who is trying to create a technology business management practice or a FinOps practice? How do we make those practitioners smarter? How do we give them the tools so that they can guide the change that's needed in these organizations? Because really it's a change management problem as much as a technology problem or a business problem. Sure. So there's a first set of what we call the FinOps advisor, a TBM advisor. Those are kind of initial starting point. But the real magic's going to happen when we can tap, almost, I would say, $500 billion of spend data over the last 14 years. What if you could take that data and provide some guidance and insight? What's the next gen, what I call a benchmarking solution, where you come to our system and our system tells you, here's some opportunities for you to consider. Mm-hmm. Whether they're more about a misalignment of your resources, or you could apply these skills to these kind of priority projects, or you could make these shifts. We're reaching a point where the data and the insight will help you navigate what the next steps are and move you to action. And then tying that to some of the automation capability, you want to automate as much of the actions. So it's productivity and automation are the two frontiers, if you will. And how do you bring them to life for different stakeholders, not just executives, but the operations leaders who need to do the work every day, right?
Yeah, terrific. I love this line about guided expertise and making the IT folks superheroes. I don't know if you saw in the Washington Post, I guess 2 weeks ago now, after the CloudStrike debacle, or as I say, every tech person's worst nightmare. Anyway, there was an article in the Washington Post that was titled "Hug Your IT Folks," and because that's who pulled companies out of that, right? Was IT folks, and we don't often think about IT as as some place to give a lot of love or to consider them superheroes, and yet they are. So thrilled to hear that there are tools to help with that now.
And I've been using the word technology more than IT because when I think more and more who my users are, they're no longer stuck to the back office IT functions.
True.
Its technology could be, we have a customer who's using us in the front office for order processing. We have a hospital that's using us to look at the cost of a bed to manage facilities. We have customers who are using us, more and more in terms of their MarTech platform and seeing how do they want to look at their MarTech spend. And so it's increasingly, I've been calling it technology business management, not IT financial management, because that has a connotation of back office, dodgy
Absolutely.
system. This is more about, how do I use technology as a competitive weapon? How do I make sure that every dollar I'm spending is being applied correctly? And am I getting the most value out of it? And it's really becoming more a business conversation. So what we call IT strategy years ago, it was business alignment was a big word. What is the tool and technology to align business outcomes to the technology spend and the consumption of technology? And I think that's the bridge that's been hard to cross. And that's what we're starting to
Excellent point.
see.
Yeah, great. So let's talk a little bit about your leadership journey, if you don't mind, because that's my audience, is really leadership and leadership strategy. So how do you successfully lead an organization through this kind of growth?
I used to call myself, a decade ago, if you asked me, I'd say I'm a phenomenal product guy.
Mm.
And because it was all about build a great product and figure out a go-to-market around it. Like that was a traditional enterprise selling motion, right? We'd build great products and then figure out how we drive a go-to-market around it. In the modern world of SaaS, I think you put the customer in the middle.
Yeah.
And when you say customer, it's not even the customer. It's not like a JP Morgan's a customer. Who's the user and what problem are we solving? Mm-hmm. So the big shift for me the last decade plus has been, it's all about the user and what problems we're solving. Right? Start with the customer problem, and more specifically, the user persona and what problem they're trying to solve for that. Because technology is, you're going to use a service. I honestly don't know how the technology is built. I really don't even care how it's built. So it's really about outcomes, problems, and use cases is what we've been really centered on. And it's then second is, okay, do you have a team that has that mindset of growth? Do you have a team that's focused on or obsesses on customer? Look at Amazon and their customer obsession. So you learn from that and you go, okay, how do I start building a team, a leadership team particularly, that's built around customer success? It also breaks down this functional silo model that we've all had. So if you look at some modern software companies, it's no longer about individual leaders. Like I cannot be successful for my customer if the product doesn't work, if my delivery, my onboarding service is not there, right? If I am not able to capture that customer during their journey for selection and adoption. Most customers already have done their research before they even come to select the technology. So what is that initial touch experience? So I'm spending more and more time around how do I build a leadership team that has shared objectives and goals that are centered on the customer problems, built around financial metrics. Because at the end, we've seen the last decade, or last 3 to 4 years, a lot of startups, high growth, not profitable. Look what happened with evaluations from 2020 to now. So you have to figure out, how do you figure out what is that, metric of financial success that you're going to build towards so that you know your customer acquisition costs, your lifetime value. So we're very financially driven in one side from a business perspective, but centered around solving customer problems that we can uniquely be great at. Yeah. Setting up teams that are built for collective success. And there's a book recently, Arvind introduced us to around teamship versus leadership. And I like this idea of teamship. And I think it speaks to what I've been starting to move towards. You win and lose as a team. You spend time bringing everybody up. You spend a lot of time debating. And debate's actually good.
Absolutely.
Because out of that comes, kind of good conflict, as I'll call it, versus bad conflict.
Yeah. I would say it's essential, Ajay, debate. Because without that, to your point about good conflict, without that, you don't get all the voices heard. You have blind spots if you're not having debate and conflict.
And that's the hard part, right? So how do you maintain that culture? And so one of the challenges I always have is, what is that team? What is the scope of the team? Because if you go too wide, you get dispersed and you don't have the depth. Right. If you're too narrow, you consider a silo. And so one of my personal challenges is kind of getting the definition of team right for everybody. Making sure setting up these focused efforts or solution areas. I love to build a platform. I'm a platform guy to see my history. Yeah. But I really believe it's built on the strength of individual use cases and solutions, but in a platform way. And so that's what we're trying to do, is how do we bring these specialized teams together that maniacally focus on customer, but they're building solutions that are not just these silos, but they're built in a platform way. So if you buy one solution and you want to extend to the second, the experience is better. It's better and better. And there's more network effect. But using more of the capability from us than from a separate individual vendor. And that's really the trick of marrying platform thinking with customer focus. That's what I aspire for.
Yeah. And to your point, the definition of a team, I think, includes that you are not successful if you're not all successful. You're interdependent. And so, having my goal always in working with clients is to make sure that people are able to work at their potential, but which allows the team to work at its potential. And this concept called no dumbing down, right? So a team can only perform at the level of its lowest performing member. And so creating a team with these shared goals and objectives and interdependency is 100% the key. I couldn't agree with you more.
And I think the last piece is I would say, I naturally talk about empowering teams and experimentation, right? I think something with it we can all do better at just how do we, if you see the successful companies, the speed of decision making, the speed of putting something out in the market has competitive advantage. So this notion of velocity, speed is another one that I always think about. Like, how do I unlock and empower my leaders to move with speed? So when you create these kind of teams, how do you empower them to move with speed, fail fast, and continue to evolve? And then I like the AWS model of one-way doors. We use that quite a bit, right? As long as it's not a one-way door, it's not a one-way decision. Allow them to run hard, so it can always pull back and try something else. And so the ones that I really want to get involved in is those one-way decisions, so that we make sure we're debating that thoroughly. The rest of the time, I'd rather get out of the way and let the teams be successful.
Yeah, great. Just thinking Amy Edmondson would say, fail smart, right?
Great way to think about it, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I'm interested in leadership is this, for me, I believe that comfort with ambiguity along with an action for bias are two things that are essential to leadership. And we talk about action for or bias for action a lot, but we don't talk much about this idea of you have to deal with ambiguity. And the more the higher you are in the hierarchy of leadership, the more ambiguity there is. How do you deal with the inevitable ambiguity that's part of a leadership job?
We often translate it to instinct, experience. And so there is a bit of, and I've always said that I've hired some amazingly smart, young folks out of school. And then what's the difference between their capability, a lot of potential from someone who has a lot of experience? And it's the ability, the experiences have kind of taught us when we kind of have a good feeling that, this doesn't feel right. And I don't know how to explain it, but many cases I will have my instinct guide me to say, this just doesn't, I know all the data is saying something, but there's something missing here. And that allows you to spend a little bit more time to probe. Yeah. And so there is no substitute for experience. I'm learning more and more. And so when I think about an experienced leader versus someone just going up into the role, it's that surrounding them with mentors' experience has a lot to do, because, those lessons learned instinctively, I can look at a problem today and generally say, that's going to work, that's not going to work. And here's 3 reasons why. Or that sales structure doesn't work, but I've tried this before. So I think there's a lot to say in terms of the ambiguity can be covered through either back to these one-way, two-way door conversations, making able to take those kind of calculated risk where it makes sense. Second is bringing the right experience to bear and being open to ask a lot of questions to others. So I have no problem reaching out to others and saying, hey, have you seen this before? What would you do? Getting multiple viewpoints so you can make a decision. Like, we're looking at an acquisition right now, and there are 2 schools of thought in my team. And we're going back and forth on this, and we will never know 100% all the facts. And at some point, we're going to have to pull the trigger. And so we are looking at, okay, what are the hypotheses? What are the assumptions? What do we know are the true truths? And what are the things we believe we could capitalize on? And then collectively, we'll make a decision.
Yeah, I think sometimes when those decisions are so hard to make and you've done all the data analysis that you can reasonably do, it ends up that there are no bad choices, right? They're just 2 different paths. And so I think experience will, as you say, will guide you in those things. I have one other question for you as we sort of come to a close, and that is, as I mentioned, the tagline for my business is up and to the right, because that's the spot on the 2x2 matrix where we always want to be. Was there a moment in your career when you knew that you would be successful as a leader?
I've had a very colored history, I would say, if you look at my experience. Most people knew exactly where they wanted to be. I just like to jump into interesting problems, work with great teams, and not really worry about what the destination was going to be. I reached a point where I had become too senior, and I needed to show that I had functional ownership. I needed to basically have the ability to show that I had run businesses, driven teams. So I walked up to one of my leaders many years ago, and he basically said, you're phenomenal at these things. These are the areas you need to grow into. And the only way you're going to do it is if you take on risk. And so from then on, I started to take on bigger and bigger challenges. And I was generally successful. I've had my own set of failures and I could learn from them. But I think that's that point, I was pretty confident that I could walk into a new problem domain. I knew what my strengths were and how would I apply my strengths to then learn the new space. So I always brought something to the table, walking into an opportunity or a role, and then I would learn the remaining pieces. And that skill, once I mastered it, gave me a lot of confidence that I was going to be successful. And I think it comes back to knowing what we talk about core competencies. I think you gotta be humble enough knowing that, in some cases you've been lucky to be given the opportunity. In other cases, that you have something to offer. And then how do you take that and build the teams around you? And I think I've really done a decent job of mastering that now to say, okay, good market instincts, know my strengths, let me build the great teams. And that's become kind of my superpower, if you will.
Terrific. Well, thank you. What a great note to end on. Really appreciate your time and all your insights today. And best of luck to you and your team.
Oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate you tracking us. Hopefully the next milestone we're celebrating with you again.
Terrific. We'd love that. Thank you.